Deadlifting with a rounded back is literally asking for a back injury. It's one of the most dangerous things you can do in the gym, is what fitness influencers would have you believe. But how true actually is this idea? How dangerous is it to flex your spine when you deadlift? Because this view held my deadlift back for years and it might be holding yours back too. If you're anything like me, I was really scared to add any weight to the bar just in case my technique broke down. I was scared that if my back rounded even just a little bit, my spine was going to explode into a million pieces because of what I had been told online. Not to mention trying to pull with like a super flat back off the floor, it just made me feel like I had no power. I felt super weak off the floor and I never really made any progress. Not to mention, it also had me focus on the wrong things for injury risk reduction. It had me think that technique was the only thing that was important for managing injury risk, and it neglected to talk about like weight, load management, fatigue, stress outside the gym, and all these different things. It had me just really narrow-minded on technique and over-worried about it to the point that I didn't make progress. So if you would like a complete plan to follow that handles all of these things for you and is going to help you get your deadlift super strong, click the top link in the description. There's various training programs there for you to follow. So how dangerous actually is rounding your back when you deadlift? And I'm going to go into this with 3 main arguments, and then by the end of the video, hopefully you'll feel a little bit reassured and a bit more confident that you can put some weight on your deadlift and you can actually make some progress. So argument number 1, resistance training overall, just in general, is very, very safe, and this includes the deadlift. Now, if we look at all the different forms of resistance training, like bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, CrossFit, just even Olympic weightlifting, so all these different forms, the injury risk is super low. Basically, the data says for every 1,000 participation hours in these sports, these weightlifting sports, we see about 2 to 4 injuries. Now, if you go ahead and compare that to other forms of different sports, you can see it's so low. If we compare to like football, basketball, and stuff like that, the risk is so low. And it makes sense because how often do you see like catastrophic injuries happen in your gym? It's not very often, right? Maybe we see some like aches and pains and stuff like that. But in general, lifting weights is really, really like low risk. And that's why when I see people talk about like the risk to reward ratio for the deadlift, it's massively overstated. These movements are so safe. And think about it, like most of you are training in like an air-conditioned gym, like a really comfortable facility with exercises that you can literally decide exactly how much weight you put on the bar and how difficult you can make the exercise. Like you can go as light or as heavy as you like. And for most of them, you're literally just standing in one spot doing a movement. Now compare that to something like football or rugby, where there's opponents, you're moving at high velocities, you're chopping and turning and jumping and landing and stuff like that. Like you can see why they sustain way more injuries compared to us just in the gym loading up basic barbell exercises. So in general, I just want to reassure you that like lifting weights is like super, super safe compared to these other exercises. And I think actually worrying so much about injury risk is more likely to injure you than actually doing the thing and just getting better at deadlifting. So argument number 2 is the idea that people think that a neutral spine is really safe and a rounded back is dangerous. Now, we have studies showing that you can even sustain back injuries when the spine is neutral. So people have even herniated or slipped discs when their spine is in neutral. So it's not a case that neutral is safe, rounded is dangerous. It's just like a spectrum, and people are going to perform the deadlift in various different ways because we're all built very differently. We've all got different anthropometry, different limb lengths, different movement patterns, different heights, weights, things like that. For someone like myself, I'm naturally quite kyphotic, which basically means my upper back is quite rounded naturally. I've got a bit of that like upper back slouch, my shoulders are a bit rounded forward, my neck's a bit forward, like that typical like gamer neck. So for me, my deadlift is naturally going to look a bit more rounded. Same for some of you watching this video, or maybe some of you have got that super like upright torso, shoulders pinned back, and your deadlift looks a bit flatter. We're just going to perform the lift a bit differently based on our individual genetics, and that's not a good or a bad thing. Some of the best deadlifts in the world have been done with a very flexed back, and I think it could be advantageous to some people because it gets the hips closer to the bar and it makes the lift a bit easier to perform. My third argument is that we actually cannot prevent our back from flexing anyway, even if we wanted to. And that might sound a bit crazy to you, and you might think like, what's he talking about? But we have studies where the researchers basically do a study. They have some participants do the squat and the deadlift, and they put some markers on their spine to kind of determine the level of flexion or extension. And they tell the people specifically, do not round your back when you do the squat or the deadlift, and we're going to video you and we're going to kind of assess it. And the lifters are not able to keep their back in extension. They naturally flex and they can't do anything about it because we don't have that much voluntary control over it. The back, like literally your spine will flex, it will extend, it will twist and rotate in different ways when you do the squat and the deadlift from rep to rep, and you can't do much about it. Yes, you can brace and stuff like this, but it's still going to flex and move. Another thing from these studies that they noticed is when the researchers look at the pictures or the videos of the participants lifting and their spine looks neutral and it looks flat, and then they look at the markers and they actually test the position of the spine, it's actually in flexion even though it looks like it's in extension. So we can't even reliably, with the naked eye, determine if someone is in flexion or not. So we don't really have that much control over it. And I think worrying about this stuff obsessively is going to get you injured more than just allowing your body to move a bit more naturally and picking a technique that is consistent week to week and a position that you adapt to over time and your body becomes accustomed to, rather than saying good, bad, because people just don't work like that and we don't move in those ways. So those are my main three arguments. And in summary, I don't think that rounding your back when you deadlift is particularly dangerous at all. So thing number one, resistance training in general is just very safe anyway. It's way safer than other forms of exercise. That includes the deadlift. You're not going to get super hurt and damaged in the gym unless you train like a moron and load up a ton of weight on the bar too quickly. There are other aspects to injury risk than just purely technique, because think about it, you could go and deadlift the empty bar or 60 kilos with a super rounded back and you probably won't get hurt. Sure, if you throw on like your 1 rep max and do it on day one, you might, but that kind of shows us that technique isn't just this one thing that is going to hurt you. There are other aspects to this, like load selection, load management, stress outside of the gym and stuff like that, right? Point number two, we can sustain injuries in neutral anyway. So if we can get hurt with our back in neutral, then neutral isn't this magic position and flexion isn't this dangerous position. It's just more about picking a technique that is efficient, repeatable, and we can stick to over time, and our body gets accustomed to the demands of it over time. And then argument number three, even if rounding the back was dangerous, we can't do much about it anyway. So what's the point of obsessing and worrying about it and telling people like, you rounded your back, that's dangerous, you're going to get hurt? Because we can't make that argument based on the data we've got and based on the fact that some of the biggest, strongest lifters in the world pull with a rounded back, like Eddie Hall, Brian Shaw. Loads of these lifters pull with a super rounded back and they're not getting hurt all the time. So I don't know, where's the evidence that this is even the case? I don't know why people say it all the time. So in summary, I don't think rounding your back when you deadlift is particularly dangerous. What I would recommend to you watching this video is that you pick a deadlift technique that is efficient, it's repeatable, so it stays pretty similar week to week, it's durable, so it holds up at percentages of your max that are quite high and close to failure, and it feels comfortable and powerful. You can do it week after week and feel strong, and you can do lots of volume, lots of intensity, and thus you're able to add weight to the bar over time, recover, adapt, and get stronger. I think consistency of your technique is more important than the specifics, okay? And for some of you, that might involve having a flat back deadlift. For others of you, like myself, it might involve some spinal flexion. Now, you could even argue that flexing your spine when you deadlift might be more efficient for some people because it gets the hips closer to the bar, makes the lift easier on the hip extensors. But you could also argue that because you're so flexed over, it's quite hard to lock out because you've got to uncoil your spine to stand up to lock out. So there are trade-offs between both styles. So pick one that suits you the best, stick to it, get good at it, and keep it repeatable week to week. And stop kind of obsessing and worrying about having to have perfect technique with a perfectly flat back, because I think it's holding you back and is stopping you from actually putting weight on the bar and getting stronger. Don't take that to be a moron. Go and load up 250 kilos on the bar, pull it with a super flex spine for the first time ever and hurt yourself. But my point is, a little bit of spinal flexion probably isn't going to kill you. Now, if you would like some one-to-one advice on your deadlift from myself, top link in the description, you can hire me as your coach. Or if you just want a good deadlift program to go and follow to get you super strong, second link in the description, and there's 3, 4, and 5 day options there for you. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video helps to kind of reassure you that deadlifting is safe, helps you to get stronger at the deadlift. If you have any questions, comments, and stuff like that, then feel free to post them in the comment section down below. I have a video here on the deadlift and how you can build the strength of yours and get super strong. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.